He came to the park for nothing more than a quiet morning walk. A moment of peace, but peace isn't something everyone is allowed to have. Within minutes, the park manager's eyes locked onto him, suspicious and cold, scanning him like a threat. Whispers began, phones came out, and suddenly a simple walk turned into a scene. "Stop right there. Show me your ID," the manager barked, loud enough for families to stare. The man hadn't broken a single rule, yet the humiliation spread through the air like smoke. Moments later, police cars rolled in, sirens cutting through the trees. All because a black man tried to walk where he supposedly didn't belong. Before we dive in, hit that like button and subscribe so more stories like this reach people who need to hear them. He arrived at Riverside Park just after sunrise. The kind of morning where the world feels gentle, soft light on the water. Kids feeding ducks, couples jogging past with coffee in hand. For him, this place had always been a small escape from the pressure of his real life. A space where he could blend in and simply exist as a man, not a title. He wore plain clothes, walked with calm steps, and kept to himself. But even in his silence, some people only saw his skin. The park manager, a man known for keeping an eye on outsiders, spotted him the moment he stepped through the gate. Instead of greeting him like any other visitor, the manager watched him from a distance, following him with slow, calculated steps. Every move the man made sitting on a bench, tying his shoelace, checking his phone, was treated like suspicious activity. A few park regulars noticed the manager's stare and assumed something must be wrong. That's how prejudice spreads, not through facts, but through glances. The man sensed the energy shift around him, the way people subtly stepped away, the way conversations paused when he passed. He tried to ignore it. He'd faced moments like this his entire life. But today, the air felt heavier, the judgment more direct. He had no idea that this ordinary walk was about to spiral into public humiliation, police involvement, and a confrontation that would reveal a truth none of them were prepared for. As he continued his walk, the park manager finally stepped forward, blocking the path with a stiff, authoritative stance. "Excuse me," he said, voice edged with accusation instead of courtesy. "We've had complaints about suspicious behavior. I need to know what you're doing here." The man looked around, confused. Still calm, he replied, "I'm just walking." "Is there a problem?" The manager scanned him up and down, eyes lingering with disrespect. "You don't look like someone who belongs here," he muttered, loud enough for others to hear. That sentence alone shifted the atmosphere. Suddenly, the park didn't feel open. It felt like a cage closing around him. The manager demanded ID. The man hesitated not because he had anything to hide, but because he knew what this moment represented. If he complied, it reinforced the manager's right to profile him. If he refused, he risked escalation. He chose dignity. "I don't have to show you anything. I'm not breaking any law." The manager's face tightened with anger. "Then I'm calling the police. People like you think you can just walk in anywhere." That phrase, "people like you," burned deeper than the threat itself. Around them, whispers grew. No one asked questions. No one wondered if the real problem might be the accusation, not the man accused. Minutes later, the first patrol car pulled up, tires crunching over gravel. Two officers stepped out, hands resting near their holsters as if prepared for danger. "Sir, we received reports of a suspicious male refusing to identify himself," one officer said. Suspicious male. Not man, not visitor, not person. The label fed right into the narrative the manager had created. The man took a breath, trying to stay calm. "I'm walking in a public park. That's all." But the officers weren't listening to explanations. They were listening to the caller. And the caller had already painted him as a threat. The manager stood behind the officers, arms folded with satisfaction, as if justice were being served. "He was lurking near the playground," he lied confidently. "Walking back and forth, acting strange." The man felt the humiliation rising in his chest. Parents stared. Joggers slowed down. Every set of eyes treated him like a danger. One officer stepped closer and said, "Sir, put your hands where I can see them." The park went silent. Even birds seemed to pause. He raised his hands slowly, not out of fear, but out of exhaustion from moments like this repeating throughout his life. Moments when innocence wasn't enough. Moments when truth didn't matter. The officers exchanged looks, misreading his calm as defiance. The tension thickened, every second stretching painfully. The man realized that the situation was no longer about a walk. It was about whether he would be allowed to walk away at all. And this was only the beginning. The officers moved in closer, forming a half circle around him as if he were a dangerous suspect instead of a man trying to breathe in the morning air. One of them rested a hand on his weapon, a gesture meant to intimidate, not protect. "Sir, if you don't provide identification, we will have to detain you," the officer repeated. The man looked at the faces surrounding him, fear in some, judgment in others, and in a few, a disturbing sense of satisfaction. He felt the weight of centuries pressing on his shoulders. He had tried to avoid this moment, tried to maintain his dignity. But now, the situation had spiraled to a point where silence was no longer an option. Slowly, deliberately, he reached into his jacket. Officers tensed instantly, hands gripping weapons as onlookers gasped. The man froze for a moment, knowing one wrong movement could cost him everything. Then, with calm precision, he pulled out a leather badge holder and extended it toward the officers. "Here's the identification you're so desperate to see," he said quietly. The officers approached with caution until they opened the badge and their faces drained of color. The gold emblem gleamed in the sun. The title beneath it shattered every assumption made that morning. Director, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Shock rippled through the crowd. The park manager's confidence evaporated instantly. His mouth hung open, words trapped somewhere between fear and regret. Even the officers stepped back, stunned by the reality that the man they had treated like a threat was one of the highest-ranking law enforcement officials in the country. The man held their gaze, not with pride, but with deep disappointment. "You didn't ask questions," he said softly. "You made a decision the moment you saw me." And in that moment, everyone understood. The real danger had never been him. It was the prejudice that followed him everywhere he went. The silence that followed was heavy, almost suffocating. The officers stumbled over apologies, suddenly aware of how quickly they had believed a lie built on bias. The park manager tried to defend himself, claiming he was just doing his job, but every word only revealed the truth. He had never seen a man that morning. He had seen a stereotype, a threat, a story he created in his own mind. The FBI director didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. His calm carried more weight than anger ever could. "This isn't about me," he said quietly. "It's about what happens to people who don't have a badge to protect them." The manager lowered his head, unable to respond. The officers offered to escort him personally, but he shook his head and walked past them with a dignity they could not erase. As he left the park, the question lingered in the air. If this could happen to someone with immense power, what happens to those whose voices are never heard? That day became a lesson many would never forget. The bystander's recording went viral within hours, not because he was the FBI director, but because the world saw how fragile dignity becomes when prejudice is allowed to lead. It exposed the quiet ways discrimination hides behind concern, policy, and security, turning everyday moments into battlegrounds. In the end, his walk in the park became more than a morning routine. It became a reminder, a warning, and a question every society must ask itself. How many lives would be safe? How many confrontations would never happen if people judged character before they judged color? If you've experienced or witnessed the same, share your story in the comments. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video so together we can spread the message further.